This is Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned, Chapter Firebug, Section 1. One Thursday morning, Socrates met with Stony while Stony was on his coffee break from Avon Imports. Yeah, Folger lives out on Winnet Terrace in Compton, Stony said. Does he still know a lot of cops or police officers? Socrates asked. What is this, Socko? What is what? All I want to know is if Folger knows some cops out there on the street. You don't talk to cops, Socko. Stony was a stocky man, an ex-ship welder with salt and pepper hair and gray-brown skin. You don't talk to them. Stony glanced down the alley. His boss was looking out of the warehouse loading dock toward the two friends. Bono always thinks somebody's stealing if they meet somebody out here, Stony said. Give me your cousin's address, Socrates insisted. Okay, Stony said, but what? This isn't going to be any trouble now, is it, Socko? Trouble? What is that supposed to mean, Stony? Do you think I'm the kind of man to mess with folks? I think you're serious, Mr. Fortlow. Really serious. I don't want you going out to Folger if you are on some kind of campaign or going to cause some type of big trouble. I'm not on to anything, Stony. I need to know something, and maybe Folger could help, that's all. Section 2. 42 years, Folger Weil was saying, seated with Socrates Fortlow on his rickety front porch. Rickety means weak or falling apart. 42 years, and they put me out in the street. They didn't even let me come back and sit around now and then. Too many rules. Too many kids with guns and badges. That's what it is. That's not how a police department should be run. Folger was 67, but looked 15 years older. Teeth missing and wrinkled as a plucked bird. Okay, so he's missing teeth, and his skin is really wrinkled, as if you took all the feathers off a bird. Folger's eyes didn't seem to focus on anything in particular. You know a good cop I could talk to? Socrates asked after nearly an hour-long lecture on the faults or problems of the LAPD, or Los Angeles Police Department. Dispatcher was the only job that Folger ever had. He had fallen apart in his retirement. A dispatcher is a person who receives phone calls and sends the police off to do certain tasks. His lawn was dead and brown. Blue paint peeled from the walls of his house. Did you hear about those fires? Folger asked. One of them went up last night. Everyone had been talking about them, the fires, abandoned stores, abandoned houses. They say that dead man was a squatter, Folger said, a glimmer of glee or happiness in his distracted eyes. So it sounds like there was a man who was living in the one of the houses or stores that was burned, and that he was squatting. And to squat means to live someplace without permission. The woman was his girlfriend. They were playing house, just like they had real jobs and a mortgage. So these two people, the man and the woman, were living in an abandoned house as if it was theirs. The first people killed in a dozen fires set. Some people are saying that it's the fire department doing arson for the white landlords' insurance policies. So if you burn down a house, or if a house burns down and you have insurance on it, then the insurance company will pay you the value of the house that burned. Folger could have talked on forever. All he needed was a warm body with ears to sit by and breathe. I think it's the Koreans myself. They want to own all of the black folks' homes. You know, it's really just what they call a peacetime invasion. The Koreans are going to be all over here. Korean bosses with Mexican slaves, and there won't be any room for any black people at all. I don't know about all that, Folger. Some of the Koreans are really nice people. It's just those businessmen want to steal everything we have, and businessmen come in all colors, even black. Folger sneered at Socrates' weak defense. To sneer, it means to make a face that shows that you don't agree with. So Folger is making a face that shows that he doesn't agree with Socrates' defense of the Koreans. He wasn't going to be convinced, but Socrates didn't care. He was thinking about Ira Giles, about how Ira had all of his privileges taken away in an Indiana jail. They sentenced him to biscuits and water for 60 days. On day 61, they gave him biscuits and water again, as a joke. Ira cut his mattress open and shoved an open book of matches inside. He lit a single match and ignited the book. The cot caught fire, and 4 guards came in to put out that fire. Ira stabbed 2 of them before they could tell what he was doing. He killed the 3rd one, but number 4, Harvey shot, laid him low, or killed him, or hurt him, or arrested him. So this is a story about a man who was punished, and on the 61st day they gave him the same punishment, and he was so upset that he started a fire, and it led to 1 officer's death, 2 guards getting hurt, and Mr. Schott himself getting executed or killed. Socrates had always considered fire as an ally since that day, or a friend, even though they executed Ira. He had ordered biscuits and water for his last meal. "You're wrong, Mr. Fortlow." "Say what, Folger?" "It has to be some kind of conspiracy. Look at me, look. I worked hard my whole life, and now I don't have a thing. I have $800 in retirement coming in and $1,000 worth of bills. You can't tell me that's a couple of slumlords doing, that's the result of just a couple of slumlords doing their business. No, that stuff goes all the way to the top." He's saying that there is a group of people organizing to keep people like Folger poor. The top. You see that, don't you? "Maybe it goes to the heart, Mr. Weil," Socrates said. "Say what?" "Maybe just the whole thing is rotten. Us, them, the other guy too. Maybe something spoiled was thrown in with the bunch of us a long time ago, and now the only way to settle it is to burn it all down. All of it, like those houses." Folger looked closely at Socrates while rubbing his hand up and down the left side of his face. "I have to take my nap soon," he said. "All right then," Socrates replied. "But tell me, do you know a cop I could talk to? A black man that knows he's black?" Section 3. Socrates spent the afternoon boxing groceries, or putting groceries in boxes, and making deliveries around West Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. It was summer and hot outside, but Bounty Supermarket ran from cool at the checkout registers to cold over by the freezer aisles. Socrates was the oldest employee of the store. His surly or angry appearance and incredible strength delighted the young black girls who worked the electric eye cash registers. And for some reason, the older white ladies preferred him to the younger men to deliver their packages. Socrates worked extra hard that day, unloading a big shipment of canned goods from General Foods. He threw out double boxes so fast that the young men had a hard time keeping up. "Hey, Socko," Bruce Tynan whined or complained. "Slow down." The other boys had slipped away on break and never returned, and they're working too hard. The Beverly Hills teenager was a football star at high school. He was a good kid, even though he was white, and Socrates liked him. Dr. Tynan, a rich surgeon who owned his own hospital, didn't want his son working in the store, but Bruce wanted to earn his own money, and defied his old man or his father. "Okay, quarterback, I'll give you a rest." Socrates climbed out of the delivery truck and sat on a stack of boxes. He smiled when he saw that Bruce was trying to hide his heavy breathing. Socrates waited for a while, until Bruce had caught his breath. "Hey, Bruce." "Yeah, Socko?" "What would you do if you knew, or thought you knew, that a man had killed 2 people?" Bruce's face flushed, and his eyes looked away toward the delivery door. Huh? He grunted. You heard me. I'd go to the police. I'd tell. But what if, Socrates asked, what if it wasn't on purpose? Then they would find him innocent in court. Ah, it was a mistake, but he was doing something wrong. They'd still fry him. Socrates watched the doctor's son trying to keep up with the problem. Would he do it again? Bruce asked at last. What? Whatever he did that got those two people killed. Socrates stood up and hefted 2 boxes of fruit cocktail in his arms. I don't know. It was just some magazine article I read, Socrates said. Come on, let's move some boxes. Denther's Bar and Grill was a cop cafe on Normandy, or a place where police officers went. It had wood frame windows, old-time metal Venetian blinds, and a cursive neon sign that said cafe in blue and open in red. Only cops, and the women who wanted them, went to Denther's. You could smoke in there, kick back and relax. Anything you said was among cops, safe. No one would say anything. Nobody robbed Denther's. Nobody worried about building codes or closing hours, or other things that might happen that were illegal. They had a jukebox that was free. A jukebox is a machine that plays music. And 3 young waitresses who wore clothes that the men liked. Among the waitresses, there was a white girl, a black girl, and a Latina. Denther's was a cop paradise, or so Folger claimed. Socrates entered the door at 9:30 exactly. He was still wearing his Bounty blue and green t-shirt, but that wasn't enough to fool those cops. The jukebox was playing disco music. That's from music from the 1970s. But the conversation nearly stopped. Socrates waded through the dense crowd of men. A couple resisted his advance, but Socrates was a strong man. He bowled his way through, cautiously, not pushing hard enough to start a fight. At the bar, he asked, "Is Kenneth Shreve here?" The bartender, a small man, did not answer. Socrates asked his question again. "What do you want?" a white man seated at the bar asked Socrates. "I want Kenneth Shreve." "What for?" "Are you his mother?" Socrates asked, almost pleasantly. "You better watch it." The unspoken word dangled at the end of the white man's sentence. It was an integrated bar. Black cops and white cops patronized or went to Denther's. You couldn't call a man the N-word unless you were one yourself. The white man didn't use the word, but he would have liked to use his fists. Socrates wondered why he didn't feel afraid. "Do you know where I can find Kenneth Shreve?" "I'm Shreve," a tall black man said. He had come up behind Socrates. Socrates turned around. "Folger Weil sent me." Kenneth Shreve was wide as well as tall. His shoulders could have carried Socrates' hefty 260 pounds. His hands were small, but so, Socrates remembered, were Joe Louis's hands. Joe Louis was a famous boxer. "What's that old fool want?" Kenneth asked. He could see the long history of felony trailing in Socrates' shadow, but he didn't care. So that means that Kenneth could see that Socrates had done felonies just by looking at him. He wanted them to extend retirement age at the dispatchers so that he could have something to do, Socrates said. That got a laugh out of Shreve. "Come on," the cop said. "Let's sit over at that booth." The booth had 3 black cops and 2 black women crammed on the bench. One woman had a hand in the lap of the man on either side of her. She was looking back and forth at them, wide-eyed. The men were looking into each other's eyes. All that broke up or stopped when Sergeant Shreve came by. He didn't even say anything. He just walked up and the men hustled the women out of the stall, took the women away. "Hey," one of the young women said, "what's wrong?" They sat, and the quiet bartender brought beers. Socrates downed his with one swallow. "What's your name?" "Socrates Fortlow." The ex-convict's jaw clamped shut tightly, after his name. He wanted to start talking, but he found that he couldn't. "Well," Shreve asked, "what's Shorty want?" "Excuse me?" "Shorty, that's what we called Folger." "Oh." Socrates looked up into the crowded, smoky den. Shreve anticipated him and waved for another beer. "I have things to do, man, so if you got something for me from Shorty, let's hear it." Socrates looked at Shreve until the beer came. The big cop wanted to move, but he didn't. Socrates thought that the policeman knew somehow that the most important thing in that room was what Socrates had to say. "I have been up in prison," Socrates said after downing the second beer. "What for?" the sergeant asked. His face had gone blank. His eyes were all over Socrates. "Homicide." Shreve gave a slight nod to show that he'd already known the answer. "What do you have to do with Folger?" "I don't even hardly know the man. I know his cousin." "And what do you want with me?" "I don't want you." "Heck, man, I'm a jailbird. You know I was made in a prison cell. I don't talk to cops." An evil grin formed on Shreve's face. He was a dark brown man, with little scars and nicks or cuts on his forehead, neck, and jaw. "Don't mess with me," he said. "I'm just saying that I'm not used to talking to cops. It's not easy being here in this room." "This is the only place you're going to see me," Shreve said, "unless you want to go back down to a jail cell." "That doesn't scare me," Socrates said. "There isn't anything that could happen to me that hasn't happened already. Nothing." "What do you want, man?" "Back in jail, men didn't talk to no screw." A screw would be someone who talks to police. "They find you doing that, and there is a knife in you." "You want to tell me something, but you're afraid," Shreve asked. "I'm way past scared," Socrates said. "Way past that. I'm the one that enforces the rules, and I haven't ever broke it. But you are going to break it now." This means that Socrates used to be the one in prison that would punish people for talking to the police. And Shreve says, "But you are going to break this rule now." Shreve waved for 2 beers this time. "Sometimes," Socrates said, "you might get to know a guard, and he isn't so bad. I mean, he could be there for you. You know what I mean?" The beers came, and Shreve pushed them both in front of the ex-con. Socrates drank both of them in less than a minute. "You want something?" Shreve asked. "Yeah." There was a pleasant blank feeling at the back of Socrates' head. It really wasn't enough beer to get him high, but he'd forgotten to eat that day, so the beer affected him even more. "I don't want your money, man," Socrates said. "I don't want that. What I want is you." "Say what?" Section 5. "A man is innocent until he's proven guilty," Socrates quoted. "Do you believe in that?" "If a man did a crime, then he's guilty," Shreve said. He took a deep breath and looked over each shoulder. "If he didn't, he's innocent. That's what I believe. But the law says that a man is innocent unless he is judged otherwise by a panel of his peers." This means that the law says that a man is innocent unless a group of people like him says that he's guilty. I learned that up in jail. Everybody was guilty up there. It didn't matter if they'd done the crime or not. They were guilty because they were found guilty by a panel of their peers. This means that even if you hadn't done something wrong, someone had decided that you did and sent you to jail. "Hey, Kenny!" A drunken black man had staggered up to the booth. To stagger means to walk unsettledly, not straight. He was supported by a young woman under each arm. "Kenny," the drunken man had said again, "let's go on upstairs." The man cocked the top of his head toward the back door and winked. Shreve glanced at the door and then at one of the girls. "You go on," he said. "I'll be up in a little while." "Aw," the women complained in unison, or together. As they were leaving, Shreve said, "You better cut out this stuff and tell me what you have to say, brother." I was just saying, did you believe that a man is innocent? What, man? What? What are you talking about? Socrates' jaw snapped shut. His teeth ached or hurt from the pressure. Come on, Fortlau, talk to me. Fire. Fire, Socrates whispered. Say what? Fires. Fires. Shreve froze like a stalking cat, a cat hunting. Those fires, Socrates said, and then the bottom fell out of his diaphragm, sucking all the words back down with it. Means he lost his breath. The fires in Watts? He could still nod. You know who's doing them. I don't know anything for sure. A man's innocent. Innocent. Shreve sat back and rubbed his scarred face. It's the reward, right? So sometimes when someone's doing a crime, the police will release a reward of money for whoever can find him. What reward? Said Socrates. Come on, brother. You can't pull this on me. They announced a reward this morning, $15,000 for information leading to the arrest of... Socrates was up and out of his chair before Shreve could finish his sentence. He was moving fast toward the door. No excuse me's, no being careful as he pushed people out of the way. Outside, he walked quickly down the street. Socrates Fortlow kept saying to himself. No, they're not going to catch me with that. Fortlow, no. Fortlow, stop, halt. The command took over the convict side of Socrates' brain, bringing his legs to a full stop. Halt is a police word that's used, and Socrates is so used to responding to that word that he stopped immediately. What's wrong with you, man? Sergeant Shreve said as he caught up with Socrates. He was breathing heavily. I've been calling for you for 3 blocks. Socrates just shook his head in stubborn denial. What's wrong? Shreve asked again. No, said Socrates, as if that answered any questions Shreve could ask. The street downtown was empty, except for a line of homeless men and women reclining against or leaning against a wall across the street. The traffic lights kept changing color, but there was no traffic to pay attention to them, to heed them. No what? Do you know who the South Central Firebug or Firestarter is? You can't buy me, man. I'm not your slave. I don't want the money, Fortlow. You can have it. All I want is the man. He's out there killing people. That's why you came here, right? You don't want to turn in a man because you're an ex-con. But you still don't want people to die. The flames in Socrates' mind seemed to flare or burn brightly on that dark street. Ira Giles swinging his homemade knife while his flames were crawling right up his back. Screaming devil right out of hell, somebody had said. So Ira Giles, when he started that fire, he caught fire himself. The fire caught his clothes on fire. They all laughed and spat and said that the guards should have known better than to give Ira biscuits and water for an extra day. It was their own fault. You can push a man only so far, and then you've got to let up or kill him. So you can make a man only so angry, and then he's going to break and do something. So you either have to give him a release, let him go, or kill him. Let's go down to the station, Fortlow. Let's make a report. Wait up, Socrates said. Wait up. What? He's innocent, right? If he is, then why are you talking to me? I want him treated like a man, officer. I want you, Socrates jabbed his finger into Shreve's chest, to tell me that you are going to go down there and make sure that he's treated like a man. I don't want him beat or cursed or cheated. Folger told me that you do a fair deal with black men, and whites too. I want a fair deal for the man I give you, or so help me God, I'll be out there in the streets burning just like he did. Shreve put a hand on his bruised chest. I'll be there, you can bet on that, and he'll get as fair a deal as I can give. Section 6. Socrates told Sergeant Shreve his story at the downtown police station after signing a document that stated he was giving evidence about the South Central Firebug. There wasn't much to say. Socrates had seen Ira Giles through his cell grate after Ira had stabbed those men. He'd been beaten and stomped. To stomp is to step on someone really hard. His right arm was raw from fire, but Ira was grinning. His face was slick with sweat or wet with sweat, and his eyes were big enough to scare a wild animal from its den. He was gibbering or laughing, talking nonsense and laughing. He would have danced if the guards hadn't kept punching him, and making him walk straight ahead. Socrates had been out walking on the night of the last fire, the fatal one. He heard the fire engines and smelled the smoke. The overweight black man who capered towards Socrates didn't eat to caper is to dance. So the overweight black man who danced towards Socrates didn't even see the ex-con. He was at his own little party, his chunky legs or fat legs switched in their work pants. It was the smell at first, Socrates told Shreve. Then it was the way he was saying words that didn't make any sense. He was sweating heavily too, but it was the dancing. It was the dancing that made me follow him home. That's all? Said Andrew Collins, Shreve's patrol partner. That's what you got us down here for? Socrates told them how he waited for Ponzel Richmond to leave his house again. I looked in the window and saw gasoline cans with a lot of bottles and rags around, he said. He didn't tell them how he pried the lock off the back door. He didn't tell them about the diary. Let's check it out, Andy, Shreve said to his shaggy white partner. We'll get back to you, Mr. Fortlow. Section 7. I tried to talk to them, Socrates was telling Stony Weil after it was all over. I thought that maybe I could make a difference. You know, if I said that I wouldn't cooperate unless they promised to play fair. They played it fair, Socko, Stony said. They were sitting in Socrates' house on a Monday afternoon, each drinking from his own bottle of cold duck. Cold duck is a type of alcohol. Stony had been laid off from Avon Imports. How could they help it if the man sees them coming and shoots himself? You can't blame the cops for everything. So it sounds like the police went to go check on the man who might have been doing the fires, and when they arrived, the man who might have been doing the fires shot himself. Socrates took another drink from his bottle. He wanted to hit Stony, but he held back. They drank for a long time after that. Then they drank some more. Socko? Yeah, Stony. What about that money? What money? The reward. I know they keep the crime watchers' names quiet, but if you turned Ponzel in, then you must have gotten something. Cops kept the reward except for a few $100, Socrates said. I spent the first 100 on the liquor you are helping me to drink. Socrates lit a match and took a $100 bill from his pocket. He set fire to the corner of the bill. Do you want it? He asked Stony. Stony grabbed for the bill from Socrates' hand and snubbed out or put out the flame with his thick workman's fingers. What's wrong with you? This here's $100. And it's yours, Stony. That's your share for helping to kill Ponzel. All you had to do was grab for it. Section 8. So Socrates feels bad about now killing Ponzel. He didn't mind if he went to jail, but he feels bad about having participated in his death. Socrates awoke in the night thinking about the 147 $100 bills that were buried in his meager yard. 3 feet down, they rested in their plastic bag, and with them, the diary of the firebug. The cops had found maps, clippings, notes, and gear enough to convince them that Ponzel was their man. But Socrates had the diary. He remembered one part by heart. If I could just get them to see that we have to burn down all this mess that we've created and hacked up and shacked up all around us, if they could see the torch of change, the burning of flames all around their eyes, we could come together in fire and steel and blood and love and make ourselves a home. Not this TV and church world, not this jungle of dirty clothes and Christmas seals, not ham on Sunday and grandma's dead already and can't even eat her piece.